Hello everyone, welcome back to Drinks with Kate on this steamy afternoon. I've got angry dogs who haven't been for a walk yet. The sea breezes are just starting to wander through the open doors and it's starting to feel a little bit less enervating at 6 o'clock on Thursday the 16th of February. It's awesome to be back. Hello, Craig. You win the prize for being first back. Hurrah! And Sid, lovely to see you. Hello, Cotty and John. Fantastic to see you. Hello, Peter and Karen. I am sure we have some new attendees for Drinks with Kate who have joined us for the first time. So we'll do all the sort of, how this all works pretty quickly. Hello, Kevin. How you doing? Emily's still on the tram. Well, hopefully she'll get there before you've drunk all the wine. Hello, Peter. Lovely to have you back after 2 years. Goodness, how lovely. So you can hear there's a bit of banging and crashing going on out around the place because Richard's trying to get the doors sorted out to let some cool breezes in but not let the dogs out to eat the peacock. That would be bad karma for our first Drinks with Kate, for the peacock to be eaten off screen. Those of you who haven't been here before, welcome. I'm Kate. And it's just lovely to be back. I hope you all had a lovely summer. I'm sorry about last time when we had our little intro session, we got cut off rudely before I managed to sign off. So let's hope that technology doesn't let me down this time. Tonight we're going to be drinking the Pinot Gris and Skins 2022, and because we're probably all pretty thirsty, I reckon we'll get straight into that in just a moment. Sounds such a tease. I'm sure you're all drinking at home already, so I'll get there in a minute. Just a little bit of homework for people who haven't been here before. Basically what we do is we open the wine, we put it in the glass and we taste it together, we talk about it. I'll try and give you some sort of semi-serious grown-up tasting notes to start off with, and then we then start having a chat about whatever we feel like here. So it's always interesting to see where things go. I recommend that as well as your wine and a wine glass, you bring a glass of water, because I think that it's always a good idea to drink one glass of water for every glass of wine that you drink. Hopefully, particularly on a hot day like today, which it is down here. I don't know what it's like where you are, because I know we have people from all over joining in, but it's been 35 degrees here at Moorooduc today, and it's one of the very few summery days that we've had so far this summer, so it's been a little shock to the system. So we've got our water, keeping ourselves hydrated. Hello, Shell, how you going? It's been a long week, hasn't it? It's been crazy. Craig, good first question, hey? So Craig's asking, is it his imagination or is this a deeper colour than the usual Pinot Gris and Skins? So it is deeper than the 2021 and the 2020. We've had this level of colour a few years ago, but hello, Anne, lovely to see you. But yes, this is deeper in colour than the last couple, and we'll talk about that as soon as I get some in the glass. So let's get it open. Before we do that, I've brought two glasses. I was really in two minds about which glass to put my Pinot Gris and Skins in, and anyone who hasn't done this before, you'll know that there's quite a few people who've been on this journey for a little while. So they're kind of comparing to Pinot Gris on Skins that we've had over the last few years. And I always find a white Pinot Gris that's young is nice in this shaped glass. But I think because we're looking at Pinot Gris and Skins, which is basically Pinot Gris made using red wine making techniques, I'm going to use a Pinot Noir glass because I think it's got more in common as a wine with Pinot Noir than it does with a white wine. So let's get this into the glass. Okay. And if there's anyone who's new and who has worked out the chat system already, please do introduce yourselves and say hi. We always love to say hello to newcomers. Holly, you're not allowed to bark just because you haven't been for a walk. It's been too hot to take the dogs for a walk this afternoon, so we're making them wait till after this, which could be a disaster. We could have a lot of dog barking and carrying on. So I'm just going to push through. Pinot Gris on skins. Cheers, everyone. So this little wine, absolutely, Craig. So it isn't. So it's got darker colour. It's got richer fruit than previous years, and it's come together after bottling really quickly. So we thought we'd have to hold it back for a little bit longer. We sold out of the 2021 just before Christmas, and we thought, we're going to have a time where there's no Pinot Gris on skins, which is always a bit sad because it breaks up the white and the red on the shelf. But we had a look at this just a couple of weeks ago and we thought, fantastic. Well, it was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now because we had to put it in your box. We thought, no, we're going to do it for the first wine of Drinks with Kate. So hello, Sonia. Lovely to see you. And Stephen and Cheryl, lovely to see you. Pizza in the oven. Fantastic. This will be a great pizza wine. I think if you've decided to go with pizzas, good decision. It is quite smooth for such a young wine, Anne. Let me just have a little talk about the wine in general. In fact, let's do the tasting first and then I'll tell you how we made the wine because it's quite, for those of you who know, you can just drink along and enjoy your snacks and make your comments. That would be fantastic. But there will probably be some people here who haven't tasted the Pinot Gris on skins and are wondering why it smells and tastes the way that it does. So this is a wine that is pink in colour, but we don't call it a rosé. We call it a very light red wine. It's made from Pinot Gris fruit. Pinot Gris fruit has juice that is clear, but the skins have a lot of colour in it. So if you ferment the wine with the skins in the ferment, like we do with Pinot Noir, for example, you get this. So you get this beautiful colour, sort of salmon pink, almost watermelon pink colour in the 2022. And you get more perfume and you get more savouriness from the fruit than you would if you were looking at a white version of the wine. Also, the tannins are quite firm. So if you've left the wine in the fridge for a bit too long and it's a bit cold, or you didn't pull it out early enough for it to warm up to, it should be around about the sort of 14 to 15 degree mark, really ideally for drinking pleasure. So if it's a bit cold, then try and warm it. If it's warm where you are, let it warm up in the air, give it a good swirl. You can even use your hands to warm it up a little bit. I'm not going to because it's quite warm here and I'm quite warm as well. So I'm going to make it too warm too quickly. But it should be served at the same temperature as you'd serve a light Pinot Noir or a Beaujolais. So 2022 was a very small vintage. We had similar difficulty during flowering and fruit set in 2022 as we had this year, but then we had beautiful ripening weather once the fruit had set. So small crop setting, but beautiful ripening time. So you get this lovely kind of slow, even ripening of the fruit. Tiny little berries, so you get a lot of skin to juice ratio, which is why the wine has got so much colour in it this year. Slightly thicker skins than we've seen for the previous couple of years as well. So again, that's why we're seeing more colour. And the fruit character is quite forward as well as a young wine. It's smooth and quite fruit forward as well. See, I'm out of practice with this. I've left my phone on thing and Sue's texting me to say she's there as well. Hi, Sue. Glad to see you. My phone's not working now, so that's all right. But I know you're there. Hello. So what are we seeing on the nose and on the palate here? So this wine is a very light red wine, as I said. So what are we looking for? I think it reminds me quite a lot of Pinot Noir. You can see that family resemblance between Pinot Gris and Pinot Noir when you make Pinot Gris using these winemaking techniques. I'm sure it will go beautifully with the prosciutto, Craig. It needs something sort of salty, a bit meaty, or some nice kind of pungent cheese works really well with this as well. Tomato-based things go well with it as well. On the nose, I smell quite a lot of rhubarb, sort of stewed rhubarb fruit. There's some berry there as well. There's a little bit of strawberry, a little bit of cherry. there's something else that I'm struggling. I think it's a little bit of pomegranate or something like that. It's slightly kind of exotic, red, tangy, fruited kind of note to it. It's also got rose petals. It's got sort of a little bit of sour cherry there. It's got those little. So in previous years, we've talked about this wine having some slightly Japanesey kind of flavors, things like pickled ginger and salted plum. And I think this wine does have a little bit of that there. Richard's just come to steal the wine. If I could have the bottle back when you've put some in your glass, that'd be great, because I want to talk about the label. But it's really juicy on the nose. It's got less of that salty savouriness to it than previous years. It's got more upfront juicy richness on the palate. We've been making strawberry jam over the last couple of days with seconds strawberries, which are very ripe and perfumed, but not perfect for eating. And it does, Karen, it does smell like overripe strawberries that you're kind of chopping up to make into strawberry jam, which I think is quite appealing, because it's got that real kind of, then you put it on your palate and it's quite savoury, and it's got that sort of sweet but salty kind of flavour that for me is reminiscent of tomatoes and tomatillos. And that kind of group of fruits. There's a very umami kind of savouriness to the wine as well, which is almost salty, but it's also that sort of just that savoury. I've struggled with this before, and last year I think I talked to you guys about the the flavour of savoury shapes. It's savoury shapes that they say that their flavour is just savoury, and for me that's this flavour in this wine. It's that savoury note that isn't anything except for just sort of pure umami savouriness. Cotti, we drank our last bottle of 2021 on Tuesday, and the acid's less pronounced and more fruity. This will change over time? ? So the acid's less pronounced in the 2022, and it's more fruity. I think that's what you're saying, Cotti. And I think it will change a little bit. Well, I think what we're seeing here is a slightly riper version of Pinot Gris on skins in 2022. It's slightly riper, but it's also smaller berries. So as I said, more skin to juice ratio. So you're seeing more colour and more flavour coming out of the skins during the fermentation process. Hello, Robin Deb. Lovely to see you. Welcome. Oh, good. Of course, Shell. I knew you'd have salmon sashimi. I could have picked that. I hope you send me a beautiful photo. Hello, Hannah and Jack. Lovely to see you again. So what was I saying? Yes, acid is there, but the wine is bigger and juicier and has more fruit flavour to it, so it sort of hides the acid a little bit more, whereas the 2021 is a bit leaner and has sort of cleaner bones in a way. So the acid, if you think of the acid and tannins being the bones, and then the fruit intensity as being sort of the flesh on the bones, sometimes a wine from a year where it's sort of cooler, not as much intensity of flavour, you'll get something a bit more elegant with sort of finer acidity that's more easy to see. This one's got this big kind of juicy fruit character to it, which kind of covers up the acid a little bit. Craig, I agree, there is a citrus in here somewhere. I think blood orange is a good call. Maybe there's a little bit of pink grapefruit as well. But I think it's more of an orange kind of a character, blood orange, maybe a little bit of Seville orange. It's that sort of sour orange without the wine doesn't have as much acid as you'd expect an orange flavour to have, but it's definitely there. So, food matches. And a lot of you will have heard this before, but I'm going to repeat it again because it's a funny little thing that I started saying sort of slightly shamefacedly, and then someone else said it completely at random. And what I said was that I think this wine goes well with food, savoury food that's the same colour as it. And I know that does sound ridiculous, but if you think about the food recommendations that I gave you, I'm thinking about things like prosciutto and jamon, so cured pork meat, but that sort of lovely pink coloured dried charcuterie. has lots of salt, has lots of meaty kind of savouriness, but a little bit of sweetness as well, which works really well with this wine. Sashimi made from salmon and tuna also works really, really well with this wine, whereas kingfish sashimi or sushi made from whitefish doesn't work so well. Prawns work really, really nicely with this wine as well. And I haven't had it with lobster yet, but I think we should try one of these days. Peter and Karen are saying it goes well with tomato on puff pastry. I think, yes, so making a little puff pastry tomato tart where you kind of get the puff pastry and stick the fresh tomatoes into, I know, well, Richard Peter's noticing that there's quite a lot of wine missing from this bottle when you took it away and brought it back. He has actually poured a glass for Jill as well, so he's not drunk all of the rest of it by himself. But yes, it does. It goes down quickly, doesn't it? It's a hot day here. We need a little bit of rehydrating with some pink wine. So yes, so puff pastry. Get some freshly grown tomatoes, shove them in the puff pastry, put it in the oven, let it all puff up around the tomatoes. Fantastic. I do the same thing when I'm making focaccia. If I've got some nice tomatoes, I'll stick them in the focaccia before I bake it, and they kind of get baked into the bread, and then you've got these lovely kind of little explosions of tomato-iness when you bite into it, which is really good. But I think prosciutto is a fantastic match to this wine in particular. I think the 2021 was really happier with tomato-based dishes. So it is about sort of adjusting what you're doing to match the wine. Oh, Cheryl's having it with Italian sardines in olive oil. That would be gorgeous. Yeah, I think this wine can cope with sort of oily, fishy fish really nicely. And it actually also copes very nicely with a little bit of spice. So if anyone's doing sort of steamed dumplings and you've got a little bit of chili sauce there, it can cope with that. It also likes a little bit of sort of soy flavour. Just all of those flavours need to be subtle additions to the food rather than major components, because it is a wine that has a little bit of delicacy and elegance to it, so it can get overwhelmed by too much flavour quite easily. Oh, Polly. Poor Polly, very frustrated. She's had a terrible day. It's been too hot, and now that everyone's home, Jill and Richard went out for lunch today as well. So I've been here, holding the fort with Linda and Jeremy and the dogs, and they came back, and Polly's feeling very neglected. Anyway, they're managing to keep her under control quite well. I'm swirling this glass a lot because I think because it's such a young wine, and I said we didn't need to decant it, but I do think it's changing in the glass. And I think a good swirl really helps to bring up the perfume. It brings up more of that rose petal note, a lot more of that kind of less of the juicy fruit, more of the perfumes, and a little bit of spice as well. So I think that's rather nice. How are you guys going with the temperature? Is it at the right temperature? Are you happy with the way that it's drinking? At the moment, I've got lots of people who are very familiar with this wine from previous iterations of the Pinot Gris on skin. So if there's anyone new who'd like to make some comments about how they're finding it, because we do see a lot of people getting quite freaked out by this wine when they first taste it. Rob dined at Merrick's General Store for lunch today, had the Stilby and something similar from On and On, both paired with tuna sashimi and roast spatchcock. Sounds delicious. I do think sort of slightly gamey little birds, so things like quail, spatchcock, squab even work really well with this wine. I think this is a wine that is very versatile with food, and when people come into Cellar Door and they taste it, they're expecting one thing and they get something different because they're looking at it and saying, oh, look, it looks like a rosé because it's pink, but then it's got a lot more texture to it than a classic rosé. I don't know if you guys noticed, just you're sort of moving away from the flavours of the wine for a moment. Did you notice that we've got a new bottle? I think that you might have seen the new bottle with maybe the Devil Bean Creek Chardonnay last year, some of you. But this bottle is considerably lighter than the old bottle. and it's more locally produced. So it's produced in South Australia, whereas the bottle that we were using before was coming in from overseas. So we're very excited to be launching our new bottle. It's the same shape as the green bottle that we use for all the other wines, but everything from 2022 has gone into this new bottle. I think maybe the single vineyards might be 2023. Anyway, nice new lighter bottle. Why are we going for a lighter weight bottle? Well, partly because it just makes it easier for us to pick up a case of wine. We don't need to do our backs picking up boxes of wine. Thank you very much. But the main reason is there's been a lot of talk about how the wine industry can be a little bit more responsible for looking after the planet. I think everyone has to think about how we're going to, keep this planet operating for the children who come after us and generations after that. And wine is not a very environmentally friendly product. There's a lot of other things that are less environmentally friendly than wine. But, a lot of times we haven't thought about how we can be more thoughtful about how we produce and package our wine. And as farmers, we work really hard in the vineyard to do things that are kind to the planet, not to trying to avoid nasty chemicals and trying to use natural agriculture as much as possible and regenerative agriculture, because the land that we've got, we can actually make better, which is an even better option than just kind of keeping it as it is, because I think we've degraded our land a little bit, to make an understatement, in the world. So we're doing all of those things in the winery and in the vineyard. But glass as part of the carbon footprint is one of the worst things. And Moorooduc's not ready to move away from glass bottles as a way of packaging our wine, because we think that glass bottles do a very good job of keeping the wine in and keeping the wine in good condition for as long as you want to keep it, particularly with a screw cap on top. So the one thing that we can do really easily is use less glass and bring the glass in from closer by. So less transport, less actual glass made in each of the bottles, and we've reduced our carbon footprint significantly. So I think that's pretty cool. Watch this space for lots of other things. Cheryl, that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked. Before I touch on that, I'm just going to say thank you, Craig. I'm glad you drink more wine and less water, but unfortunately, it takes a lot of water to make a bottle of wine, so that's okay. We collect our own water as well, so it's all good. And much less plastic. That's true, Peter and Karen. And if we could just get our recycling sort of working better in Australia, then we'd be in an even better position. Okay, enough of that. Answering Cheryl's question, because it's much more interesting. So Cheryl's asked, why have I mentioned it's not a rosé a couple of times? How is the making of the wine so different to rosé? What I mean by this, Cheryl, is that a traditional rosé is usually made from grape varieties that we hello, Zoe and Magnus, lovely to see you. Rosé wine is usually made from grape varieties that we regard as red wine grape varieties, but they're made usually using white wine making techniques. So a practical example, a lot of rosé is made from Grenache. If you've had red Grenache, it has lots of color, it has lots of tannin, it has very different flavor from rosé made from Grenache. And that's because red wine is made by fermenting the juice and the skins and the pips all together. So while the fermentation's taking place, the juice is changing from grape juice to wine, to alcohol, but it's extracting color and flavor and tannin from the skins that it's soaking in while it's doing this process. And it's like putting a tea bag in a cup of hot water. The water sucks all the color and flavor out of the tea bag, and your water ends up tasting very different and being a very different color than it was before you put the tea bag in. If you're making a classic rosé, then you're taking a red grape variety like Grenache or Pinot Noir, or sometimes Shiraz, sometimes Cabernet Franc, a red grape variety that has lots of colour and tannin in its skin, but it has very little or no colour in its juice. And if you use a white winemaking technique for making a rosé, then you press the juice off the skins and the pips, and you throw away the skins and the pips, and you're left with a juice that has a little bit of colour in it, but not the tannin, not the flavour, and not the intensity of colour that you get from fermenting the skins and the juice together. So a classic rosé is made fermenting the juice without the skins. You get a little bit of colour because you've soaked the juice for maybe just a few hours, maybe a couple of days on the skins before you start the fermentation process. You end up with a wine that has got a beautiful colour to it, but it drinks like a white wine. You serve it very cold, it doesn't have any tannin, it's fresh, it should be crisp, it should be refreshing, and it does all the things that you want a white wine to do. And traditionally, most rosés are made in warm countries like Spain, the south of France, southern Italy, in places where they don't have white varieties that retain enough natural acidity to make crisp, refreshing white wine in a hot climate. So you can make crisp, refreshing rosé from these red varieties in a hot climate, and they're much nicer for drinking in summer than a lot of the white wine made in those regions. I hope that makes sense. Moving on to the wine that we're drinking today, yes, it's pink in colour, so it looks like it should be called rosé, but it's made from a variety that we consider to be a white wine variety. So Pinot Gris, generally, traditional winemaking for Pinot Gris is that we take the bunches of grapes or the berries and we press them and take the juice away from the skins and then ferment the juice. So you have a white wine and the skins go away. What I didn't realise, and what a lot of people don't realise, it took me quite a long time to realise that Pinot Gris grown down here on the Mornington Peninsula is a clone, and the climate is such that we get a lot of colour in the skins. So we're throwing away all that colour and tannin in the skins when we're making white wine from Pinot Gris. If we make it using red wine making techniques, we get this. We get a pink wine. So there's not enough colour in the skins of Pinot Gris to make a really deep red wine, and the tannins are softer than they would be even in a Pinot Noir, but certainly softer than a Grenache or a Shiraz. And we get this wine that's much more textural because we've fermented the skins in with the juice. It's picked up colour, it's picked up tannins, and it's picked up different aromas and flavours during that fermentation process. So this is, while it's a pink wine, it's really a very light red wine rather than a rosé. That was a very long explanation, Cheryl. I hope it made sense. And I hope that it sort of, it's slightly pedantic of me, but anybody who's got to know me over the last 3 years will know that that's one of my things is, getting the language right, getting the explanation right, being able to talk. I'm not very good at giving you very short summaries of why something's good or why we like it or whatever, but I am good at kind of giving I think I must be my father's daughter. He likes going back to first principles as well. So anyway, Craig, thank you, Rob and Deb. Pinot Gris on skin 2020 and 2022. How's the 2020 looking? I haven't had that for a while. I do stash a few bottles of everything every year, but not nearly enough to be able to look at it on a regular basis. Craig has said that he's always skeptical about wineries that say they're only using free run juice. Is this technically only using the free run? This wine, no. Okay. When people talk about free run juice only, that's about taking the juice off the skins prior to fermentation. So if you have the opportunity to visit a winery during vintage and you see a press happening, when people put the fruit into the press and turn it on, before it starts kind of squeezing the fruit, the sort of press that we've got is a press that's like a big tube that's got a bag in it that then the bag inflates and squashes the fruit. But before that inflation even happens, our press turns around a couple of times, and the free run juice is the juice that just falls out of the press before we even start squashing the grapes. So that's what we mean by free run juice, Craig. So that's for a white wine or a champagne. Once you start pressing the berries to get more juice out, then by definition, because you're squashing them, you're pulling out a little bit of tannin and a little bit of colour from the skins. So the further into the press run that you get, the darker the juice will be in a white wine. So it comes out, first of all, looking quite clear and bright. Over the time, particularly the way we make white wine, we don't protect the juice from oxygen during that press time. So the juice will oxidize a little bit, so it'll go brown anyway, but the pressing will also increase the colour extraction from the skins and a bit of tannin, a bit of grip from the skins. But when we're making Chardonnay and white Pinot Gris, we press the fruit quite gently. And so even though it's a long press cycle, it's very gentle pressing. So you do get a little bit coarser juice in the later part of the press cycle, but not terribly coarse. Like you could press it a lot harder and pull a lot more of the tannins and phenolics out of the grape skins. So thanks, Peter. Wolf Blash Rosé. Well, that sounds very refreshing as well. Richard is baking. Richard, do you have an order for a loaf of bread for Peter? Yes, Peter said he's coming in on Sunday to pick up his bread. And yes, so this Pinot Gris and skins is available now at Cellar Door. As with all of the 2022 vintage, there's very little quantity of everything. So I know I say this to you all the time, and I know that you think this is just me putting my marketing hat on, but if you're a fan of the Pinot Gris and skins and you've enjoyed the Pinot Gris and skins tonight, the 2022, then do grab some early, because I think it will sell out fairly quickly. We're going to try and make more in 2023 because it's a wine that most of you know started off as an experimental wine for us in 2015. We increased the volume a little bit in 2017, 18, 19, 20. 21 and 22 were small vintages, but we did what we could. But we got actively. We've got a Pinot Gris vineyard that we had been selling the fruit to someone else for, which we're keeping this year. So we'll be able to make more Pinot Gris on skins from that vineyard, and that's really exciting for us because it's a wine style that we love. We think it's something that I've really enjoyed sharing with you guys on Drinks with Kate, because I think I've created some converts to this wine style as well. It's a fun wine to have at Cellar Door as well, because a lot of people sort of have been tootling around the peninsula and they've tasted lots of Chardonnay and lots of Pinot Noir, and they hear, oh, that's kind of nice and different and something alternative, which for us little old kind of traditional Moorooducians, it's nice to have something a little bit alternative and a little bit quirky in our portfolio. Rob and Deb have some thoughts, both lovely, but the 2020 has a more complex flavour, a more orange colour and less acid. So I think you'll find with a couple of years age that 2022 will very probably become more similar to the 2020. The 21 was quite pale in colour and quite perfumed in comparison. This wine does have a nice acid line to it, so that's probably a little bit different from the 2020. But yeah, it'll be interesting to have a look at this wine in a couple of years' time. I might have to stash a few dozen so that we can, when we come back for Drinks with Kate year 6 or whatever. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But it'd be nice to revisit this wine with a little bit of age on it, and I haven't put enough of the previous vintages aside to sort of cover off enough boxes for all of us to taste them together online. We'll have to do that when we do some live Drinks with Kate tastings in this year. Now I'm actually struggling to put words together, which sounds like it's a good time for me to sort of start to wrap up. Sid, the 2022 Pinots are going to be just sitting and resting for a little bit longer. The single vineyard Pinots will be released in June, late May for Wine Club members, which is all of you. We're just revising sort of all of the Wine Club stuff, so we're going to be putting out some emails in the next couple of weeks about sort of how Drinks with Kate kind of sinks in with Wine Club, and it's something we've been meaning to do for quite a long time. So Sid, I will keep a lid on the 2022 Pinots for the moment, but we will be talking about them during the year, no doubt. Yes, Shell, you definitely get Drinks with Kate tour t-shirts for the live events. Good point. I'll put that on my list of things that I have to do. Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Rob. It's a really special wine, I think, and it's a wine that I love, and I'm glad that it's a wine that you guys love as well. I have a couple of other things to say. I don't think he's with us today, which is a little ironic and a little sad, because this week is our last week with Jeff working at Moorooduc. We've had to sort of keep that bit of news under our hat for a little while, but Jeff is leaving us. Sunday is his last official day at Moorooduc Estate, and he is buying a winery and a vineyard in Macedon. So we will no doubt speak more about that in the future. I'll let him settle in before we start talking about doing a guest spot with his wine. But I don't think this is the last that we've seen of Jeff. We're going to be making a little bit of wine for him here. And he's going to be helping us out, hopefully, with any back-of-house computery website stuff that we get stuck on. So if you are watching, Jeff, we will miss you. And I will have to fly completely solo on Drinks with Kate from now on. I always liked having Jeff in the background to sort of sort things out if things went horribly wrong. But I think hopefully if I can't do it now by myself 4 years in, then probably I should give up and try something else. So I think I'll be okay. But yes, thank you, Jeff, for all of your help with getting Drinks with Kate all sorted out. Next week, I haven't looked to see this is what I need Jeff for. I haven't looked to see what we're doing next week in the box. But we've got some fun things in the box. And while I kind of fill madly and have a look at what is in the box, I will say, what will I say? What am I going to say? I was going to say something really good. McIntyre Pinot, of course. Pinot and Karen, of course. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm glad you like the wine. Okay, next week is controversial and exciting. We're doing the McIntyre Pinot 2020, and I know that you guys have tasted this before, but this is a wine that has had really mixed reviews from the critics, and I thought it would be fun to taste that wine and have a look at what people have written about the wine and have a discussion. It's not about saying anyone's got things wrong or whatever. It's just about, I think it's a really good discussion to have, because a lot of people say to me, oh, who's the best wine writer? Who do you listen to the most? And as always, I've got a long and conversational answer to that question that we will work on with a glass of 2020 McIntyre Pinot Noir next week. I will also send you out a couple of recipes, one easier and one harder, that I think would be particularly lovely to match to that wine. But I think that will be a really fun discussion, and I'm really looking forward to having a big chat about that wine and drinking that with you next week. So until then, I think that's, oh no, I had one other thing to say. We do still have a couple of spots left for the dinner. in the winery, the Robinson Pinot and Chardonnay dinner in the winery that is on Saturday week. So not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. It's a very small dinner and it'll be wonderful. It'll be nice and intimate. We'll be pulling some beautiful Robinson Chardonnay and Pinot Noir out of the cellar, as well as looking at the current releases. I think Hugh Robinson will be there, so we can pick his brains. Richard will certainly be there, and Jeremy will be there, and I will be there, and it'll be lovely. So if you were thinking about coming and you haven't got around to booking yet, we've got just a couple of spots left. So give Linda a call in the morning, or send us an email, and we'll get that all sorted. Cheryl, making passata is a very important part of the late summer projects. We will be doing that as well in hopefully in the next few weeks. What time is it, Craig? It's 7 o'clock start on Saturday the 20, whatever it is. I haven't come very well prepared. Hang on. 7 o'clock start in the cellar door. Craig, you could fly down for sure. It's the 25th, Saturday the 25th of February, in the cellar door, 7 o'clock dinner. Yep, first in, best dressed. Very good. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. That is, I think, all that I have to share with you today. Apart from another sip of this beautiful wine, I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. How fun to have a new wine to start off with this week. We've got lots of fun things to go on with. Lovely to see you. Jeff will not be at the dinner, Peter and Karen. He will be up at his winery trying to work out what on earth he's going to do with vintage, I think, by then. So if you want to see Jeff, come in on Sunday. He'll be here on Sunday, and he'd love to have some people come visit him. You might have seen that we had a little offer of some cool wines that Jeff selected, some 2016 Pinots that he put down the first year that he came to work here. So, yeah, lots of fun. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you all next week. Love you all. It's great to be back. Take care. Happy 2023. And I'll see you all soon. I agree, Shell. Everything is better with Drinks with Kate. Take care. Bye.